Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind. Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello, and this is Susan Kathleen, and I have an amazing guest with me today, Sherine Lovegrove. Hello, Sherine. We're speaking to each other from far afield, aren't we? I'm in Brisbane, Australia, and Sherine, you're in?
London.
Yes.
I'm in London, UK.
And
yeah.
That's right. And I'm so excited to have you on the show, Sherine, because we've known each other for, I think over 3 years now. And I've watched your transformation, the ability to transform into this limitless, powerful woman where you have really awoken your mind magic and become quite a powerhouse as a speaker, an author, and of course as an incredible healer in various fields. So I would love you to share with my guests what it is that you do.
Thank you, Susan, for having me. I'm really excited because we're going into 2020 and it's a whole new world out there for us, isn't it? End of a decade, and we can see all that we've done, and now there's this new consciousness, this new something that's coming in, a higher level of being, I would imagine. But it feels definitely like that for me. So
yes, it does for me too, big time.
Yeah. I mean, you shifting and changing in such an amazing way. I mean, seriously, talk about visibility coming up big now. So this is really, really amazing, and so blessed to see you doing well.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So tell us about you, Sherine, because you are an amazing woman. Tell us your story from A to B, because we must show the rest of the women and men out there how it is from working from adversity into the powerhouse that you are now, and where you're going, and all the exciting things that are going to be happening for you in 2020.
Yes. Well, I suppose firstly to tell people what I do in general, but of course we're talking about what's limitless, aren't we? Because there's infinite potentiality happening for us. So right now, what my real greatest desire and what I do most is I embolden sensitive, empathic women, that soulpreneurs and professional women from between the ages of 40 onwards, and help them step into their sovereignty so that they can take back control, reclaim their rightful position as wise women and leaders in our communities, and become co-creators for the betterment of the world. That's the ultimate goal of what I'm here for, is to help raise women to that level. Because I really do believe that we are here to work as co-creators with our male counterparts to change this world. We have to. We're running in a difficult place right now. We have to do that. And, the real way is to start as women to recognize that we are powerful. And it's not that we power over, but we are powerful from within because of our nature, our biology. That really excites me, because it's really about really helping women see that potentiality that they haven't known before. Well, we may have known it, but it kind of got lost as we kind of separated from our groups in a way.
Yes, you're right there. And, I love the word that you use of sovereignty and walking the path of the wise woman. When you speak about a wise woman, do you speak about possibly the crones, the witches, the people who were the powerhouses, the medicine woman? Where do you come from with that? Because that intrigues me.
Yeah, it's really quite incredible. I remember when I used to nurse. There was a young girl that I was looking after in intensive care, and she said something very wise to me. And I thought to myself, wow, she's wise, but she's had a very short life. So how does this wisdom come? Is this wisdom from hearing, or is this really innate wisdom? Is this wisdom coming from real experience of suffering and overcoming suffering? So that was something that was quite interesting. So kids can be incredibly wise because they're very connected to source up to about 7 years of age, and they literally are channels. But that doesn't mean they're wise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because wisdom
wisdom
comes from choice, making a decision to choose against something or to choose above something, to take right action. That is what wisdom is about. And it doesn't matter really how young or old you are, so long as you've experienced and gone through that, you've processed it in a particular way. So you've done what we call relational reasoning. So you've been able to do some sort of didactic reasoning that's allowed you to come up with multiple possibilities that you have that you now got to make a choice on. And you try and make the best choice, not from a place of reacting. So reacting means you're repeating past programming, but you're going into proaction. You're choosing action from a very centered and core state. You're choosing action from a state of knowing rather than unknowing. And a mother can do that. It doesn't matter where you are in that spectrum, so long as you've had practice in maintaining that still state, that you get enough information to work from. So I think probably wise isn't going to be very young because you won't have had enough life experience. But I certainly think someone in their early 30s, early 40s they're on the journey of becoming wise. So the crone, yes, in general, the crone tends to be more seen as the wiser woman because she's done with her family in the sense of giving birth, and she's now changing in a sense that actually biologically she's becoming more androgynous in a way. So her masculine and feminine are starting to become more imbalanced. And so there isn't this competing need in their brain necessarily. So they have a greater connection to their heart, but they still have huge amounts of connections to use force from their body. And they're able to activate energy in such a unique way that and it's inherent in us. It's inherent in us. So this is the bit that I think is so exciting for us as women when we get to know this deeply.
Oh, yes, Sherine. I totally agree with that. And, I went to a Gary V talk or seminar some time ago. And one of the things he said was interesting. He basically said to be a coach, you have to have a good coach. You have to have experienced life before you and gone through adversity and various things to be able to understand other people enough to be able to coach them. So where you come from there, where you talk about the crone and a person being or a woman being at a certain stage in her life and becoming, well, semi-androgynous, I can relate to that because we have been through girlhood, teenagers, all of that, and then motherhood, and then working into understanding, as you say, where you can step back and understand far better to be able to move into, as you say, sovereignty. And what were your challenges that you had to overcome to go into sovereignty?
Wow. So, this is part of where my book starts, doesn't it? It was really about learning for myself about, I guess, the biggest thing that I got to realize was that authentic bit about oneself, that I am enough. So that was when I really started to turn things around. So part of my story is that I came to this earth, and from a very young age, I really had a deep, deep connection with Source. I knew that I had this connection with Source. But on one level, I guess, I grew up in a family or a mother that particularly was, I wouldn't say she's definitely controlling, but yes, she was. But the thing was that she was also very intelligent, and very controlling, intelligent people know how to really undermine someone very systematically. And I know you've had some experience of that.
I empathize.
When I started writing my book, I started to get a sense that there was something deeper going on that I hadn't really recognized. Maybe first to kind of go into a little bit of what are the patterns that happen for us when we're not in sovereignty. So, for example, I had been in 2 failed businesses, and both of them had really treated me very badly, and I had to obviously take some accountability here. But the thing is, they were like my mother. And I realized that actually I was going into business relationships from a place of not really being in my space. In fact, it was more going from a place of moving into their space. So that was an interesting thing. So I kind of ended up separating because I felt so deeply with this last relationship was that I felt my soul was literally dying. It's so hard to explain and you probably also know this, but you know that feeling when you have this knowing, if you stay in that same place, you are going to die. And it's not, that something bad is going to happen. You know it, absolutely know it. And I remember having to make a decision. I leave, and I leave, and I don't have any money for the next little while, even though there was like nothing at that point. Or I stay in this very dysfunctional relationship where this person was just pretty much abusing me in a way. And I said to my partner, who kept trying to say, you've put in so much work, don't do this. And I said, well, if I stay, I'm being unhelpful to her, but I'm certainly being unhelpful to me. And I'm feeling so sick. And he just said, look, and the moment I said, I feel my soul's dying, he said, leave it. You need to leave. I can see that you're just desperate to leave. And he said, I'll support you no matter what. So that was useful. That was grateful. But then the journey had to start. I sort of went into a downward spiral for a wee bit. And although I still had some clients, there wasn't nearly enough to pay, my pension stuff and all of those other things because I was self-employed and am self-employed. Mm-hmm. So I then started on Wendy's course, Wendy, who was for visibility. And I started doing stuff. And I think we had a talk about Be Light, Age Right. Yeah, if you remember that talk.
Yes,
and
I do.
Just looking at energy and things like that. And I thought, hey, I found my mission because it was all about losing weight. Well, I had written the book, The Aha Moment for Losing Weight, but it was more for a behavior, not just weight on its own. So I wasn't able to really promote that book because it didn't feel as though it was mine in a way. Although, ironically, I wrote it. It was very odd. And so you know how you just can invalidate yourself in strange kind of ways because now you don't have the sense of confidence. So I did a coaching course, had a package, didn't work. I mean, in a sense, I really felt when I sort of 6 months later, I thought, oh my God, I'm not happy. I'm not going out talking about this. I feel kind of stifled. Something's wrong here. And I couldn't work out. All I could feel was this feeling of doom still there, like this ball that was gathering moss as I was carrying it, going further and further down into the deep dark mud of the swamp. And then I had another situation where I started doing another part of the course, which was more about working in the divine feminine, which is lovely, and it opened up probably more to where I was starting to move, because it gave me the sense of biology and it gave me a sense of those kinds of things. When I say a sense of biology, I'm a nurse and I have done a lot of biology and work, and I'm doing quantum integrated medicine right now, my PhD, but I was still not synthesizing all the parts. Yeah, the parts were not there. So I decided to write on that program. Another self-help book. And
why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, exactly. There was this part of me that wants to come out, and I wasn't letting it come out. And then while I was doing my website, I started just paying attention to little things, and all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, this is what I'm here to do. And part of it is learning how to undo patterns of the past. So I've always been about looking at trauma. I've always looked at aspects of wholeness, and I've always done it from a very medicine state, so I can translate across. So, for example, the idea was, how could I see all the different bodies, like the mental, the physical, the spiritual, the soul level, all of those bodies all have different levels of boundaries, so their density of boundary came into play. And I thought, oh, this is about sovereignty. And then when I was talking to the person that I was doing the book with, I realized that she said to me, you really need to be telling your story. And I said, I can't tell my story. My story is nothing. I haven't done anything in the world. I haven't gone up and done crazy things. Who would want to listen to my story?
Oh my goodness, Sherine.
Really didn't want to have my story.
Everybody wants to listen to your story.
I know that now, but it's crazy, isn't it? Because the last thing is what you're doing, and part of when we are in this kind of awful place is we don't see the value that we have to give others.
Absolutely, I agree with you there.
And it's only when we start to see the value that we have and the value of going back into our story that you start to realize, hey, there's gold dust here. There's stuff that's here, and you start to get a sense of purpose. You start to get a sense of excitement. You start to get activated.
It's where you realize that you're limitless, and that you have, and your mind magic is awakening. It's you come into an awakening.
Yes, it literally was. Yeah. Yes, absolutely right, Susan. It was an awakening, and for me, it was because I had all these parts of me that when I went into coaching, I wasn't using all my parts. All the bits that I could use from medicine, and my bits that I could use from my psychology, and the spiritual part. They were all separate. They were like little bits, things, and I had to bring them all together in some way. And I needed to find, in a way, like a uniform theory that would support and hold it, which is what quantum physics does.
It does. I mean, as a quantum energetics healer, I totally understand that as well, where it does. It sort of works everything into to your sovereignty.
Exactly.
Coming into your own.
When you start to look at it, when you start to look at it, and you get to really get a sense of what it's about, and you go, oh my God, this is why I've always had to deal with certain things, and why I had to look at things. And what it was I had to go back in time, and I had to go and face those boogeymen, the situations of where I had where I had to make a decision, and I had to make serious decisions about things. So one of the decisions was when I realized my power. I realized my power when I was very, very young, and I was about 5 or 6. I just started school, and I remember my brother threw a stone, and I turned around and I said, "Apologize." And he said, "No." So I said, "If you don't apologize," and I was pointing my finger at him, and I said, "If you don't," and I could feel the force, I still can remember feeling this force. "If you don't apologize, God will punish you." And within a minute of me turning, he fell, broke his arm.
Oh my
And at that
goodness. Really? Oh, wow. How did you feel when that happened?
Whoa, can you imagine? Racked with no, but I really was racked with guilt, because I thought, if I've done this, that's not good if I'm hurting people.
Yeah.
So I shut it down. And I couldn't tell my mother. So because of the way the situation was, as I said, my mum, my mother, my father, my brother were like a little clique, and I was the outsider. I was the outsider that I was always outside, always by myself, always doing things, because I love nature.
You were unique.
Yeah.
And you are very clearly on this earth for a unique reason, and here you are doing it.
And I always knew I'd come down. I'd always known I'd come down, and I used to sit there thinking, when am I going to go home? Because I knew what home was. I remembered home. That was the weirdest part. So that was the scary part.
Yeah,
and then I realized,
that's when you realize that you're different, and you're a person who's come from you are you, however you are different.
Yeah.
from outer space, from the quantum field. Yeah.
But obviously there were lessons I had to learn. I'd obviously made some agreements with my mother and my father and my brother on some level that I needed to learn something. And actually, I really realized through the course of writing the book was really looking at the challenges when we have power as arrogance, when we're very, very smart, we can often rest on our laurels. We can often think we know it, so we don't push ourselves forward. So all sorts of things I started to see in my life where I started to do things that were very much part of those patterns of arrogance and being proud, but proud from a sense of arrogance rather than pride in myself for having done something. It's a different kind of thing. And I kind of started to notice that, and I could see all the failures, and all the issues and events that happened. And unfortunately, part of my mother's thing was that she just beat the living daylights out of me and told me that she would control me and not me her. So that was part and parcel of the whole journey until I was about 15, certainly. And then after that, it was more psychological.
Yeah, so it's always interesting how you can flip adversity, like being beaten by a parent or a partner or any of those sort of things, and you can actually use that as your learning curve. And once you have that power of forgiveness as well, and use it as a strength, it does make you think in a different light, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think going back was really quite interesting, because I think when I went back, the first time I went back, there was a lot of victim stuff still going back.
Yeah.
I went back and I was going through it. I needed to process it. And then after that, when I came through, I then started to go. So part of being an empath is that you feel deeply for people. So you start to feel you have this uncontrollable guilt that comes with being and that's what they rely on, don't they?
Absolutely. I totally understand about the being an empath as well. And you do have that guilt feeling until you learn that you don't have to live in that area and use your strengths rather to be able to heal. Now, what I would love to do is actually talked about your second book, Hiding in Plain Sight, which I believe will be launched on International Women's Day on the 8th of March in 2020. And congratulations for that,
Thank you.
Sherine.
Thank you.
What's the book about?
So the book is really about, it's about the journey back to my past and how quickly you can land in it without any knowledge. You something triggers you and you're back in there in that moment of reacting. And part of it was really about seeing the journey, what happened in each stage of my life, and the process. Because as far as I remember, and I read your book, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, I think it is.
Yes.
Journaling was really your key to freeing yourself.
Yes,
yeah?
It was. Very much so. Yeah.
And so in a way, writing the book was like a journal, was kind of like going into a state of journaling. And each time I sort of wrote a chapter, I'd cry a bit, and then I would kind of think, well, why did this happen? What was it that happened? What was it? Where did I contribute to this? What was the lesson I had to learn? So these were the things that are part and parcel of the book. So although it's mainly a story until the end bit where I talk more, trying to put it all together about what, how these things come together in a sense of, that happened there. So this was the thinking. So this is how you shift into sovereignty. So it really is about, it has got a self-help in it, but it's just more that you get the story first.
There's nothing like reflective writing, and it does create that understanding where you reflect back and actually say to yourself, how did this happen to me? How did I move into this, and why? And when you do that, and I discovered this in reflective journaling, is that the outcome is this incredible journey, and again, it's part of the awakening where you understand yourself better and the people around you that you at the time thought were hurting you or doing something adverse. It's a healing process. It helps you heal yourself first. Heal thyself. Didn't you say that to me once?
I did. As my partner said that to me as well. You've done NLP, don't you think you should sort yourself out? Which is so interesting. But I suppose what came up for me right now while you were talking is, in a way, a little bit of what Nancy Klein's work is, which is the kind of reiterative process of what do you think, feel, and say about that, and also about what happens in the brain. And the brain is all about, and I don't know whether you know, from the middle part of your brain, where you have sort of some lobes, the parietal lobe and the frontal lobe, but the frontal lobe at the back part of the front, it's sort of coming towards the forehead. That's how we process. As we get older, we do something called relational reasoning. And it's literally every time we do an iteration, we are going deeper into the brain. We're making more and more connections. So that's why it becomes so profound. Yeah. So the moment we're doing that, we go into this deep state, and it's kind of like anyone that in journaling, the moment you're going into something, your brain wants to work. It likes to work. So it wants to find an answer. It wants to get some information. And even though once you've got the big energetic of the emotion out the way, it doesn't mean to say that you lose emotion. It's just that you get that hot stuff out. you start to be able to come into this cooling phase where you start to be able to mold and bring things together in a very, very different way. It's kind of like, for me, I think of it like, the whole brain with emotion, the whole brain goes on fire in some way. And then all of a sudden, when you watch a fire come down into something nice and controlling and you now can do something with it, and you get those beautiful coals and you warm up. And I know in Australia,
it's when you call it banking it down, I think, in the old-fashioned sort of thing,
yeah,
where it starts to glow.
Yeah, and they used to put a cover over it to keep those embers going in a really good way. So then you've got power in that. Yeah, you've got a huge amount of power. You use the power in a very different way, and that's really what happens in the brain, I think, when we start to go into that deep awakened state. We start to go into the.
So you believe that our purpose in this world is to help people erase of incorrect patterning, your karma. What do you mean by that?
So if we think about it, we all, I mean, it depends whether we believe we're a creationist or not, where we just arrived as an alien, I don't know. But I certainly believe that we did evolve. I believe that, we were unicellular that came into the world and we had to survive. So we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of years of programmed patterning. Yeah. Every child that's born has we still have two things of hearing and balance, height that we check for reflexes with a baby. So we know that there are these innate imprints that come with us. But also that every experience that your mother has had or that your father has had, that you've had imprint on the morphic resonance of your DNA. All right, so the vital aspect of your DNA, the energetic aspect, not the hard wiring of the DNA, but the energetic flow of DNA. So maybe think of it in this way. We know that nothing is solid in the world. They're just atoms and molecules that are moving across each other, even in steel. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Fascinating, that.
Yeah, so nothing is fixed. Everything is mutable, which means that the boundary can be breached the whole way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you think that you're carrying a memory of souls from thousands of years ago, that you're still carrying those memories, because every lifetime, as the energy moves around the earth, it drops energy, drops these resonances into our morphic field, and we then carry that. Part of our job is to release that, because if we think that we are a spark, we're light beings. If we're light beings, then we're light that's hidden by all the molecules, essentially. So we've got bound layers and layers and layers of cells that have already been pre-programmed from lifetimes of genetic adaptation.
I appreciate that. I mean, we've both studied timeline therapy, and we understand that this is fact. It's scientifically proven. So what you speak of it makes sense. And I think the more people understand these understandings, they can actually start to, how else do you put it? They can start to appreciate themselves and their reactions and ability to interconnect as well.
Exactly. Absolutely.
How do you think we as a collective might do this? What can you explain that, Sherine?
Okay, so let's think about it this way. There's something called the Schumann resonance that is between 4 to 8 hertz. So it's a very low frequency that keeps going around the Earth. It's there. Scientists seen it. This is not quantum stuff that's not existing. It's hard science. And what this does is it carries energy around the Earth. So when if you have an idea, if you don't do anything with that idea soon enough, an idea has to be manifested. All right. It's an energy, and energy is always being created. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's no destruction of it. So if you don't do anything with your life, if you have ideas and it's a damn fine idea and you get really excited about it, what happens is you offset that energy into the universe as a frequency. And what happens is somewhere on the other side of the world, wherever, picks up that energy. So have you ever had a thought that you thought, I want to think about that, I want to design this. And I've done this a few times. I've come up with some really good ideas and I didn't do anything with them. And 4 or 5 years later, there you were. Someone else had invented it.
Totally, Sherine, because I've always said if you dream it, somebody else can do it. So you've got to get that dream going as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've really got to work at your dreams. You really got to work at manifesting what it is that you want. And if you don't do that, you're in trouble. But as a collective, so let's think about it this way. As a unified force, part of our job is to raise consciousness to a level where we move kind of outside the state that we're living. So we're living in the physical right now. We're living in a world where people die, where we are more and more dense as we get older. All right. So as we get older, if we're not keeping our body clean, and I know you're doing a lot of cleaning with your exercises and a good lifestyle, you're really showing and glowing, and that definitely is part of cleaning the cells, right? So when you clean cells, new information's going in. And as you do that, you start to change the environment around you, right? Within you and also around you, because whoever you speak to is going to have an effect. Now we're living in a world where we actually can talk to each other across the world, and that's happening pretty much nearly as fast as the speed of light.
It is. I mean, look at us. You're in the UK and I'm in Australia. So
exactly. So we know that at this quantum level, we definitely know we've got this, and people wouldn't have even believed it possible 50 years ago. Yeah,
no, they wouldn't have.
This fast.
No.
But it's happened. So as we've developed a greater degree of consciousness, we're starting to see just how powerful our brain is. And the thing is, there's always a plus and a minus. Part of the idea of freedom is that we don't also learn to harness. So if you think about flow in the sense of structure, so sovereignty is really about how do you manage the flow so that you have a perception of structure, because we need structure to be stable. Yeah.
Yes.
So we need to have some things that's flowing at a slower pace, like a river, or ice is slow, is very slow flow, and vapor is fast flow. All right, in the middle is water. So you want to have that the structure is in the right way for you to be able to get maximum force. But if you are so busy not being able to learn how to create a structure in a way that allows flow to be, then we have a greater problem. And we're probably in the situation now where young people are, we just know with a phone, it's very difficult. People are so addicted to their phones. They're so addicted. And it's harder for them. We didn't grow up in that kind of world. So for them, that's going to be the biggest challenge, learning how to harness their brain in a different way. They have to create their own self-controls now. Whereas before, in my day, the controls were our parents created that for us. So we had that paradigm that held us until we broke free. But now they're already free.
Yes, they are.
They're going to have to learn to self-manage.
Yeah, I was really interested to see that before I left the UK a couple of years ago, that they were bringing into the teachers' training programs, a part of their course is how to deal with children and students who are addicted to their phones. And that, well, because that was never in our curriculum. We didn't have phones.
Exactly. And of course,
So,
the companies themselves that have that sell those phones have got a lot of other intentions. So there's needing to learn to be able to do relational reasoning, which isn't particularly happening as well as it probably could. But okay, so let's go back into this thing of what would happen. So if you were to take away a lot of the past trauma that a person has, if you're able to erase that, what will happen is you're cleaning out their cells, all right? So they're now operating from a higher level anyway, a higher resonance level. They're going to think better. They're going to be better. They're going to be more creative, and they're going to also have more of a degree of being able to see outside themselves. They want to create a better world. Yeah. So then, and we already know most of the young kids now are really trying to get the world to do something with the world, because we know that the world is dying in a way.
yeah, so sort of generation of indigo children who have become
Yeah.
more and more aware of the importance of this, and they're pretty amazing generation that have been blessed with. You know, Sherine, one thing that I do, and I resonate with you here, is the understanding of how you think and how one thinks, and the understanding of one's respect for their body within and without. And we are all energy, and as you say, as a collective as well, we do resonate and vibrate that power of being able to recreate, as you say, and clean out the the dirty old fridge, so to speak, and get ourselves on the right track with the ability to be able to understand the quantum field. One of the other things that I was interested is that part of your mission is to redress the imbalance between masculine and feminine polarities. What do you mean by this, Sherine?
Okay, well, it's my favorite subject. Well, I mean, let's think of it from the most important thing. I think because we've had 2,000 years now of really women not being in the best position that they should be. Yeah, they've been in a situation ever since we had farming, really, where settlements stayed together and men didn't necessarily go into hunter-gathering anymore, and women didn't stay in their collectives anymore. So you now had a situation where men and women were in the same area, and men had now also been given the right to get married. So they were then going and separating the women. So the women were being separated, and what happened was that they didn't talk to each other. So the power of the woman diminished, and the power of the man got stronger. Now, part of this taps into a social system that happens with that, but another part taps into our biology, because our biology is designed that when we are ready for mating, we leave the home. That's really what we were designed to do. Okay, leave. And so it wasn't totally alien that we went to live in someone else's house and moved away. What was alien was that we didn't stay in connection with our female, all right, with our female cohorts as much. So we didn't have a sense of power. But the thing I think that really started to happen was this idea that because we were women, that made us weak. So we lose this aspect of thinking that we are powerful women. And the problem happens is when women often came into power, they were cruel. They didn't seem to have the same kind of empathy that they needed to have. So there was a real mismatch. So what was happening is that they were moving more into the idea of what would be a masculine world rather than learning to raise the feminine world. And, I suppose the thing to really think about is that men and women orientate very differently because of their hormones. Because of the hormones. So biology sits at the heart of it first and foremost. Because a little baby boy, when he's born, he will notice different things on a mobile in comparison to a girl. Girls will look at faces, boys will look at mechanical parts. I always wondered why my brother always liked my pram. And I thought, the bastard, why has he got my pram? But what it wasn't about pushing the doll that was inside. No, it had nothing to do with that. He wanted to see how fast it could go, and it was really weird. And now when I reflect on it, I think, yeah, that's what he was doing. He broke his toys. He did all sorts of things. He was really interested in the mechanics. He wasn't interested in the nice faces of the dolls or anything.
It just makes me laugh. It makes me laugh because my brother's an aeronautical engineer, and I had exactly the same sort of experience growing up, where he used to take things apart, and I'd be totally distressed and sort of say, "Well, why did you do that?" And he said, "Because I want to see how it works."
Exactly. And this is part of the way our brains are formed. So for women, our brains are formed for connection, right? So every part in our brain is connected richly, as well as every part of our brain to our gut. Yes. So we have that aspect. Men, testosterone actively from 8 weeks in utero, testosterone actively inhibits connections to the gut.
That's very interesting. And of course, our gut has a brain, doesn't it? So do the men have brains?
It inhibits the sensory connections to the gut. So if you think about that, think about who's going to have the most amount of pain.
Yeah.
Women.
Yeah, of course.
And we know women have more pain. They show more pain. They show more embodied pain than men. Testosterone makes men more ready to fight, to not feel pain. That's the purpose. They've got to fight for mates. They've got to do all of those things. So we've still got a primitive body in a very sophisticated world with the same responses, but these responses don't want to be looked at. We don't want to look at it. And the problem is when we refuse to look at biology, we land in trouble because we start to do and put assumptions on the wrong kinds of things. And we then also don't see how we might indirectly treat our sons and daughters differently as mothers, as fathers, but mainly as mothers.
That's a really
how we treat our son.
Yeah, that's a revelation to me. I mean, it's an incredible concept as well, and people need to know this and work this the right way.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if you think you've got a child that doesn't necessarily have the same sensory angst, because he doesn't have the same connectivity to his gut, so he's not getting that massive trigger, he's going to be far more self-assured. He'll basically say, you know what, I don't really care what you think.
Yeah.
Whereas a little girl who has much more sensory things programmed to fit in groups means that she's going to be externally referenced. Men are going to be internally referenced. Women are externally referenced. They look to see what the group and how they fit in the group. Which means that girls will be much less likely to filter from the source they get their source from external.
Yes.
And there's lots of evidence to show this in testing, where they have, with children within if you have children playing in a room, and your mother walks out and the mother tells the child, please don't play with the toy. If it's a girl, she won't play with it. If it's a boy, they will. 70%. Okay? So
they're not being naughty, they're just curious.
No, but they don't feel, they're not referenced to their mother. They're referenced to themselves. So if they feel like it, they do it. They don't care.
So more women should understand their partners.
but it's not about them understanding their partners. Yes, it is. But it is about understanding.
It makes me laugh.
Yeah, but it is understanding there is this. So it means in order to communicate better, we have to learn how to work in the language of men. Yeah. We have to learn that language. In the same way, you've got to think that men are designed to chase things. So they need to have energy to chase, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to spend their whole life running around like women do.
Is that why from my experience in Africa, and of course you are from Africa as well, and you see the woman digging in the fields, and the men are all sitting underneath a tree,
exactly,
drinking in kopoti.
Well, I mean, on that level, they've taken a bit of the socialization in
I think so.
But I think if you think about it, just think about it from a pure biological thing, it makes perfect sense, because they need to be able to run and kill. Yeah. And the women they're the protected ones. They're there for the kids.
So what happens in the modern day, Sherine, what happens, I have to intercede here because it's just, I'm curious. What happens in the modern day where our men have been indoctrinated to be more feminine and not run and kill, and where are we going on that route?
Well, I think this is where it comes into raised consciousness, isn't it? Becoming a conscious man and a conscious woman, and recognizing that we have these propensities and that we don't have to be ruled by them. Yeah. So if, for example, I want to reference, if someone says to me, like certainly with a woman, if they say, oh, that doesn't look really good on you, the chances are you won't wear it again. Very few. So what will happen is you'll pay attention, that you'll ruminate on that. Whereas, a man will go, well, I'll wear what I like. But the thing is, the way to be is understanding how you speak to each other. Have a consciousness that there is this there. It doesn't mean that it's up high in the level, but it allows you to get a sense of why when you get upset, he doesn't. Why when you have a sense of threat, he doesn't. Or why most women will do the work and he won't. It's not that he doesn't want to do it. It's just that he doesn't see it's important enough.
I think this is a whole, Sherine, I think this is a whole new podcast that we could actually go through.
Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? And it is interesting, because I think that when we realize this, then we can go, okay, we don't have to do it all. No. We're doing it all because we have got some idea that what someone's going to think about us as a mother. Normally about another woman thinking about us as a mother.
Oh, this is so true. I mean, it is. Yeah, and until you actually get to the stage. How many women are
competing? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Until you get to the stage where you say, I'm going to come into my own in sovereignty and be who I am and not allow any external periphery things to change me from my unique and limitless journey into my awakening. Or once you've awakened, you understand that. Well, Sherine, thank you so much. And I'm definitely going to get you back onto another podcast. I think we'll talk about the difference between men and women next time. And thank you. I love you very much.
Pleasure. And I love you too. Take care, Susan.
Bye-bye.
All right then. Bye-bye.
That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me.
Silver on the outside, silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside, gold on the inside.
Tune in next week, where I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.